This is Orleans. Established in 1797, it is a town of about 6,000 people in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And this is Rock Harbor. Not far from Skakit Beach with all of its swimmers, kayakers, and paddleboarders, in 1814, this place was the site of a battle. When war was first declared in 1812, it was not supported by the majority of Cape Cod residents. Fairly early on in the war, the Royal Navy blockaded the American coast, making trade difficult and putting sailors out of work. In 1814, several British ships sailed into Provincetown Harbor, putting Cape Cod under more direct blockade. These ships would intercept various American ships heading between Boston and Cape Cod, seize their cargoes, and send them on their way. The Navy would also occasionally attempt to land troops on Cape Cod, though with little success. They met with much more success when bombarding a town from the sea, as they did at least once in Falmouth after the town had refused to hand over a few artillery pieces on the 23rd of January, 1814. Several buildings were damaged, but no one was killed or injured. The people of Cape Cod were angry that they weren't receiving any support from the federal government, and the task of defending the various towns was left up to the local militias. Multiple towns were offered immunity from attack by the Royal Navy in exchange for paying a large sum of money. The towns of Eastham and Brewster both accepted these offers, as the federal government was not there to protect them from any possible attacks. But the town of Orleans immediately rejected the offer. The British then attempted to land in Orleans, but they were pushed back repeatedly. On the 12th of December, 1814, a British ship called the Newcastle ran aground near Orleans. Many pieces of equipment had to be thrown overboard so the ship would be light enough to sail away. This equipment floated into Rock Harbor. At the sight of this discarded British equipment, the people of Orleans immediately destroyed it. The next day, the captain of the Newcastle sent a few men to Orleans to retrieve any equipment that had not been destroyed. Upon entering Rock Harbor, the British sailors spotted a sloop called the Camel, which was loaded full of supplies that had gotten past the British blockade. The sailors loaded the surviving equipment from the Newcastle on board and placed a captured American in charge of steering it. The American ran the sloop aground off Wellfleet, and the British sailors were captured. On the 19th of December, 4 armed barges sailed toward Orleans. Of these 4 barges, one, under the command of Lieutenant Frederick Marriott, sailed into Rock Harbor. Upon entering the harbor, the British landed several Marines, who then began setting the town's salt works on fire. About this time, Lieutenant Marriott spotted a schooner called the Betsy, which was loaded with salt. He placed a crew of 10 men aboard it and ordered it back to Provincetown. The British officer who was placed in command of the Betsy was not familiar with the American coast, so he placed an American prisoner in charge of steering the ship. The American then ran the ship aground in Yarmouth, where the British crew was captured by the Yarmouth militia. Meanwhile, back in Orleans, the Marines were facing some resistance from the local militia. One of the Marines, a man named Thomas Walker, was killed. The British continued to fight until a larger force of the local militia arrived to push them back. The British then once again seized the sloop Camel and sailed away from Rock Harbor. Not long after, one of the 4 armed barges ran aground off Wellfleet, and the 2 men on board were captured by the local militia. The Battle of Rock Harbor was over. It was one of the final engagements of the War of 1812, as the peace treaty was signed only 5 days later.